Welcome to MasterMind Minutes, the leading podcast for franchisors, franchisees, and entrepreneurs of all types. We have one guest, we ask one question, and we get one expert answer, and we do it in minutes, not hours. Good morning, and welcome to another edition of MasterMind Minutes. My name is Gary Occhiogrosso. I'm the founder and managing partner for Franchise Growth Solutions and the publisher for the national newsletter, which is also published by Franchise Growth Solutions. And for those of you new to the podcast, it's really simple. Mastermind Minutes features one guest. We have one topic or question, and we get one expert answer on that topic. And we try to do this in minutes, not hours. We try to limit this to 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes goes a little bit more. And today my guest is Sean McKay, who is also an associate and works with us here at Franchise Growth Solutions. He's the founder and president of SiteHub, which is a digital marketing agency he launched back in 2012. And over the past decade, he has worked with all types of businesses, including franchisors and multi-location brands, really to solve the one persistent problem, and that is getting better leads, which is what he does for our clients. He focuses on the full picture of franchise growth and marketing strategy, lead qualification, follow-up systems, branding, really all the real-world gaps that are all in between marketing and sales. His work spans not only website strategy, but paid media, SEO, data enrichment, and conversion-focused funnels, which in our business are very, very important, with a very strong emphasis on filtering out low-quality inquiries. And I can tell you, as a marketer in the franchise world, we might get 100 leads, and we don't want to have to sift through 90 of them to find the 10 people that are actually really interested in learning what we're doing. He has supported brands across consumer, service, and regulated industries, including government and cybersecurity clients, and really brings a grounded perspective shaped by running his own agency for over a decade. He is known for being direct, which you'll find out in just a couple of minutes, very practical and honest about the work that he does and what he doesn't do. He's quick to tell you, hey, that's not in my lane. And franchisors who are often stuck on certain things like scaling really benefit from working with Sean. So Sean, I've given you a great introduction.
Well done.
Thank you. But please tell us a little bit more about you and about SiteHub, and then we'll get into the question.
Oh, I thought that was the end of the show. Yeah, I mean that was a great
You would
intro right
like to
there.
end it
Yeah,
there, but I'm going to put you
that's
on the
it.
hot seat in a couple of
Yeah,
minutes, so that ain't
yeah. Well,
happening.
no, yeah, you said it, man. I appreciate that, those kind words. I definitely think that the people who I get along with most in this business, in any business, and in my personal life, are just people who appreciate that honest directness. I was raised that way by my dad, and it definitely stuck. So, don't hire me if you want some fluff. Don't hire me if you want someone to pat your back and tell you that you made a good effort. I'm gonna, tell you the truth, and sometimes, even if your baby's ugly, I might be the one that have to tell you that. But
Mm.
um,
Yes, I know.
yeah,
All right,
yeah,
well, then let's get into the question here, and it's sort of a topic that I know a lot of the folks in our audience who are franchisors really want to drill down on, and that is, and maybe you can sort of put it together in layers, but what would you say are the top three, four, five key elements about putting together a lead generation program? Maybe whether it's, are you ready to advertise for leads, all the way to, how are you responding to those leads, and kind of everything in between.
I would say those are the bookends right there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good.
Um, from my perspective, there's probably a lot of things that we would go through in a formal checklist, but I'd say the top five, in short, would be number one, yeah, make sure your brand's actually ready to sell. Um, Number two, targeting the right people and getting quality over quantity of lead. A lot of people can make it look, make vanity metrics look good, and I generated this many leads, but it really matters how many at-bats the sales team is getting. I think a strong landing page and qualification process plays into that. So that would be my next piece. The sales process, speed to lead, the structure of the follow-up, how to do it, how often. And then, yeah, lastly, ongoing lead validation, optimization, feedback loops, things that make the data better over time. So
Okay.
that would be my five. Happy to drill into each one.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm doing. I wrote them down so I don't forget. But let's start at the top. Okay, you said, are you ready? Are you ready?
yeah,
What would a franchisor that, and you work with a lot of our brands who are startups and emerging brands, what is that advice? What are the things that they need to do before you're ready to launch a campaign or maybe even put together a campaign for them?
yeah, yeah. No marketing campaign can fix a weak offer. Um, if your business isn't a strong opportunity. And I'm not saying you have to have 100 units open, but if you have no real differentiation, or you haven't proven anything, or you have a non-existent or very weak item 19, um, if there's, you know, less proof that you have anything at all, it's going to be harder to market. So my advice, we find the most success working with brands that have some of those things figured out. Maybe not everything, certainly you got to start from somewhere, but you got to have it's helpful to have some validation. It's
Yep.
helpful to have, even if it's corporate store locations, multiple corporate stores are better than just one location, period. Um, and having an item 19 with some ideas of the numbers, the revenue, the AUVs, and certainly it's a big help if you have a franchisee, even if it's your cousin or your nephew or an old customer. If you have one that we can turn to say, "Hey, this thing worked over here," that's huge. So
Well,
I
I
would
will
say
tell
be
you,
ready.
I will tell you, not only are those things important before you do a marketing campaign, I would tell you those things are important before you even franchise your business. You got to have proof of concept. You got to have some level of validation, which in the franchising business is key. If you think about it, proof of concept and really having an understanding of what is your product? Well, my product isn't the pizza that I serve. My product is how I'm going to teach you to run a successful pizza shop. That's really the product. And a lot of folks, as you know, and people in our industry know, they're ready in their heart, but they're not really ready on paper, and they're not ready in the real world. So I think that's a good point. When you talk about targeting, the world of franchising, unfortunately, is filled with everything from straight talk to myth to outright lies. Okay. I mean, that's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. One of the myths, okay, is I see franchisors, quote, advertising or marketing to or using terms like, be an entrepreneur, or hey, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to. Now, two things. First of all, I think entrepreneurs make terrible franchisees, the absolute worst. Because entrepreneurs, if they're truly entrepreneurs, they kind of create, invent, tinker. They don't want to follow a system. Steve Jobs, who never would have been a good franchisee, he was too busy turning the apple cart upside down. So on one hand, we have these people who I would say need to be entrepreneurially minded, meaning they're risk takers. They don't want to have a job. They want to create generational wealth. Um, and these folks who are just technicians. Well, I've been painting for some guy for the last 6 years, so I'm going to go buy a painting franchise.
Right.
They don't necessarily make good franchisees either because they don't understand the difference between the business and the work of the business. So when you're targeting, what are the things you're looking for that might be fundamentally the same amongst all brands and then unique to specific brands? If you could just share a little bit about that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so many tools at hand right now within Meta and Google to target the right people. Digital advertising in general is just endless different targeting interests and details. I think the most interesting stuff right now is in the world of um, the machine learning. It's really the AI. And so a lot of times the targeting is actually things that you and I don't know or notice, but that Meta, Google, what have you, picks up as a trend. So basically, the way it works is that if you start getting leads and marking them as good, bad, or ugly, there creates a system that Meta can go and find the similarities between all the good leads, and go get more of them.
Mm.
So part of the answer to this question is, well, I don't know. What makes a good one versus a bad one is totally independent to the client, and the tools figure that out better than any human ever could. It's going to find the similarities of what they're reading and what they're clicking on, how long they spend on their phone, on what apps, where they visit in their town, what they do for a living, all those details that go beyond my own ability to data mine. So
Mm.
part of it is there. But certainly, what we put in our ad copy to get people interested and what we're looking for in a qualified lead. I mean, obviously, someone who can afford it. Financial qualifications is a big, easy yes or no. And we can get the right-minded person who's just in the wrong time in their life, who doesn't have the funds. Well, that ain't going to work.
Mm.
So financially qualified. I think, secondly, somebody who's serious, someone who's looked into this more than once, someone who is willing to fill out extra form fields, spend a little time reading, not just someone who's like, yeah, here's my name and my email address. Yeah, I'm curious. Send me some information.
Yeah.
Tire kickers are everywhere, but trying to filter out some of those is key. Um, every brand has a little different nuance to it, but for the most part, we're looking in our targeting. We are looking for people who have corporate level jobs, who make good income, who might be willing or interested in stepping out of those careers into something that they can own and control, and that has more of a future in their eyes. They could become a check signer instead of a W-2. Um, and getting those people who are ready for a new chapter. Sometimes it's people who are recently empty nesters, or some people prior to having children. There's a lot of factors in life that come into our line of thinking, but again, one of those big ones is all the unknown stuff that we can capture through machine learning and AI.
Yeah, that's great insight because when you talk about, timing and opportunity meeting, part of that is remarketing to people digitally who may not have been ready today, but 5 months from now, they're all of a sudden they're qualified and they're ready to go, and or they're ready to learn about it. So I agree 100% on all of what you said in terms of the targeting, and part of that has to do with the feedback loop, which we can talk about when we talk about process, because I'm going through your list here.
Yeah, I kind of spilled the beans on the last one a little bit, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. A little bit of a tease. That's fine. I would tell you that you mentioned about the website.
Mm.
So, some people, we've heard this, I've heard this, is, what's the relationship or why is the website important since I'm doing meta ads? So
Mhm.
I'm getting leads directly into my CRM. Maybe they never go to my website, maybe they do. But talk a little bit about other forms of advertising, whether it's blogging for SEO or Google ads or
Right.
ads that are driving people to the website, the importance of the website, the conversion, all that good stuff.
Yeah, there's a brand we work with, for example, that has about 95% of their franchisees end up being past customers. And I think it's rare that's that high, but it's pretty common that there's some personal experience with a brand that gets someone interested, at least in that industry. Maybe you visit one cookie place and then you sign up for a franchise for a different type of cookie place because of the financials or something. But the idea comes to mind a lot of times because people were a customer.
Hmm.
So that landing page is going to be a place where they can get to organically from Google search. They can get to from signage in your stores, flyers you hand out, whatever. It's also going to be a core place that we're sending traffic to from Google Ads. And it really needs to tell a story, not just say, here's a form, sign up. And it's funny because sometimes some of the big Fortune 500 franchises, that's all they have. When you go to their franchise landing pages, it's just, hey, you want to sign up for a Subway? Like, click here, and there's a form to fill out. But that's because they've told their story to all of America through Super Bowl, through through TV, through radio,
And
for the last
40,000
and
units.
40,000 units. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't need to do that. But everyone else in the world who's got, 10 locations or less, or 50 or 100 locations or less, or no locations, needs to tell that story on their page. They need to treat their landing page like it's a commercial. Um, there should be a video. It's going to do the heavy lifting of informing the customer, getting them excited. Why choose this brand over another? It needs to answer their high level questions. How much is this going to cost? How many other franchise locations do you have? Et cetera, et cetera. And it should also do the job of pre-qualifying. Like, not everybody who visits that page is actually going to be an optimal candidate. So it should filter out people as well. And by the time they get to the bottom of that page, they should know if they're ready to opt in or if they're ready to move on.
Yep. And we find there's a couple things there I just want to unpack. So the first thing is we find that leads, inquiries that we get from someone who's visited the website, whether they did a simple Google search or whether a meta ad took them there or however, or there was some four-wall marketing with a QR code and it took them to the website. But what we find is that people who go through a landing page or a website and then eventually fill out the inquiry form, um, are a much higher quality lead. And what I mean by that is financially, they are prepared. They understand more about the brand, sort of what they're getting into because they've read about it. I guess what I would, to sum it up, I guess I would say there's more intention. They have given
Right.
more intention to the process than simply clicking on a meta ad that's got a form fill and all of a sudden, it's like sending away for something on the back of a cereal box. So I agree with you on that. But the web pages, or the website, to me, this is not really on your list, but I'm going to kind of throw it in there, is sort of almost an adjunct to the advertising. And there are other things too. There's trade shows, there's PR.
Right.
We awarded a franchise to a guy who met us at a franchise show about a brand. And then we didn't hear from him. And then he saw an ad on, it might have been on Instagram or Facebook, it was on Meta. And then he contacted us like 5 months later. And, you know, of course, the franchisor wanted to know, well, where did he come from? Well, he came from here, 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 and here. Okay. He came from four
Multiple
different
touch
places.
points.
So
Yeah.
maybe just spend a minute on, or as much as you want, but spend some time just talking about how that whole that I have this expression, nothing works a lot, everything works a little.
I love those Garyisms, and you're
Yeah.
so right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we call it omni-channel. It's be everywhere all the time, all at once. And not everybody can afford to do all the advertising or truly be everywhere. Most people can't, but you can. There's a lot of low cost, even free things you can do to expand your reach, and a lot of those are the organic pieces. Getting press. You can do that organically. You can do that with $0 spent. Showing up at trade shows. It doesn't have to cost you $20,000 to do that.
Hmm.
And being in all these places, you know, it goes back to old school marketing, man. I mean, subliminal messaging, right? People don't really realize the first time they saw Kellogg's cereal.
Yep.
You don't know when that was, but it's implanted in your brain. And so your brand, a small franchise location with that nobody's ever heard of can start to become a brand that people have heard of, and that when they see your logo for the fifth, sixth, 20th time, they go, "Oh wait, I know those guys." I mean, I've experienced it. I built my own company from nothing, and I remember early on, it was like, 2015. I started in 2012, 2015, 2016. I started having people say, "Oh yeah, I've heard of Site Hub before," and sometimes I know that there's no chance they did. Like, they were calling from like across the country, and I'm like, I don't have any exposure out there. Like, but hey, great. I'm glad you think you did, but there was local market times where I was realizing that my name was getting out there one way or another, and they've seen my logo, they've heard of my brand, and that gave them some familiarity and comfort to do business with me. And I think that's what you're really getting into here is, if you get your name out there, you write your blogs, you do your PR, you have a podcast, you show up on podcasts, you produce content, you do your social media, you do all these things, people are going to start to notice, and they're going to feel a lot more comfortable reaching out to you through your landing page.
Yeah. Personal story, personal professional story to underscore what you just said, because it's a just so important because if you're just relying on spending money on advertising, yeah, you're gonna get some results, but at the end of the day, you're not gonna optimize those results because there's nothing to support that from a almost from a justification point of view, how you justify or validate some of the other things. So I was at a franchise conference 2 years ago in New York, where I live, where I am, and I was talking with one of my clients, and some guy came up to me and said to the guy I was with, he said, if you're thinking about doing business in the franchising business, do business with him, meaning me. I was like, well, that's nice, but who are you?
Who the heck are you?
And he said, oh, his name is Lou. He goes, my name is Lou, and I'm up in Canada. Okay, now we do some business in Canada, but whatever. And he said, I follow your articles on the Learning Hub on your website. I use them to train my salespeople. And I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of a cool connection,
Yeah.
but I think it
Yeah.
underscores what you're talking about and what did you say? You need to be everywhere all the time? Is that what?
Everywhere, all the time, all at once.
All at once. I'm going to remember that.
Omni-channel.
I might actually steal that for a presentation.
A
I'll
new
give you credit.
Garyism?
I'll give you credit. I'll give you credit. Um,
Mm.
okay, so now we kind of got that whole 360 omni approach. So the last two pieces are really the sales process, and part of that process is the feedback. So, you know, talk to now you know our process because you or someone on your staff is on our what we call our FSO monthly recap calls. But talk to us about how the process, the sales process, good, bad, or otherwise, either supports or destroys the marketing
Certainly.
results. Okay.
Certainly. Yeah. Okay. So, that this is really hats off to you guys. Every client that we work on with you, I know I don't have to worry about this. Speed to lead is so critical, so important. Reaching out to contacts within minutes, hours, not days or weeks is so important. And, when we work with brands who don't have an FSO, who don't have anybody helping with development, it's just the brand owner, the franchisor doing it themselves. They're also, making the pizza and paying the payroll and paying their vendors and helping with deliveries and all this stuff. And they don't get around to leads for a long while. And then they realize their closing rate is bad. And of course, they blame marketing. So I think really the important piece here is just you have to have you have to swiftly respond to these leads. These opportunities go cold quickly. And in order to do that, you need a system, you need structure. You need multiple touch points, text, email, voicemail, actual phone calls, as much as you can do in every channel. And you got to keep re-engaging them with fresh ads, even though they've already filled out a form, keeping them engaged with your content. And if you do all that really well, there's a chance you might close some. But if you if you drop the ball in the beginning, yeah, you might as well just close up shop and stop advertising.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I read this statistic because we're looking at bringing in some uh, voice AI into top of the funnel, which,
Love that.
I started looking at this 4 years ago. I didn't start looking for it. Someone brought it to me about 4 years ago, and the technology just wasn't there. I mean, I
Wasn't.
was able to get the AI to go around in circles in about 30 seconds, okay? And it sounded like a robot. It was like bullshit, So today we're looking at three companies. We're almost settled on one where when I interacted with the company, which might have been through a meta ad, if I recall, literally within a minute, my phone rang. And I picked up the phone and fake name, and he said, "Hi, this is Joe. We just got your inquiry." "Oh, hi, Joe. How you doing? My name's Gary. It's a Saturday. I'm surprised that you called me." "Oh, yeah, we try to get back to people right away. We understand the importance." And I got probably 3 minutes into the call, and I said to Joe, I said, "Joe, are you a robot? Are you AI?" And he said, "Yes, but I've been taught to answer all of your questions and schedule an appointment with you so that you can speak to a human being who can share the details," or whatever it was. But the point I'm getting at is that first
Three
of all,
minutes is pretty good.
it was uncanny. Okay, it was
Unbelievable.
uncanny. So
Yeah.
I started asking the AI questions. I said, so Joe, when we're finished with this telephone call, are you going to be putting notes into a CRM? And he said, Gary, absolutely. I'm taking notes on this entire call. And I said, well, Joe, if I didn't answer this call, what would you have done? Well, we would have put a note in and I would have given you a call in about 5 hours. And maybe it would have been a more convenient. I was having a conversation like I was trying to troll this damn thing. Okay. And I couldn't. So when we talk about process, when we talk about speed to lead, I read this interesting article that again, I don't know how true the statistic is. I'm just mentioning it, okay? With something north of 70%, your ability to reach the person goes up just north of 70% if you reach out within the first 5 minutes of
Five
that lead
minutes.
coming into your CRM.
I've
And,
heard the same. I've heard the same.
you know,
I'm always afraid to tell people 5 minutes because their response is like, "Oh, that's unbelievable." But yeah, I
we
mean,
do it. We do it. We
yeah,
actually do it. And
yeah,
and that's one of the reasons why I want to tighten the process up with a voice activated AI because the other piece that I want to add to this whole process thing is, and I was having this conversation with two associates the other day who are high on getting this AI thing in the process. Um, Someone said to me, one of them said to me, well, how do how are people going to take it? And I said, you know what? If you asked me that question even 2 years ago, I would tell you people are going to, maybe they're not into it. They're going to hang up. They're going to go, it's bullshit or whatever they're going to say. Kind of like 10 years ago when I had to start pressing one for English. Okay. Now it's kind of the deal. I mean, so I think the world has caught up with accepting an AI because I've had some clients go, I don't want an AI calling my leads. I want a live person. I'm like, I got news for you. The AI, when you train the I don't want to get into how that happens, but it's a very cool process. But when you train the AI is not going to make an earnings claim. The AI is not going to make a mistake. The AI is going to call within 2 minutes. And the AI is focused on one thing and one thing only, making an appointment with that lead on a salesperson's calendar so that that salesperson is talking to more qualified individuals,
actually,
which
yeah,
I'm going to connect the dot now, which actually makes the marketing results better.
yes,
Okay. So
yes.
everything touches everything else. So I guess if is there any last word you want to have on any last thought you want to have on this? I think the audience understands that it's marketing, it's targeting, it's website, it's process, it's reaching out, it's caring about people, educating them, not beating them over the head trying to sell them anything, and nurturing that lead to the point where that person feels comfortable enough to actually make a decision.
Right. The only other thing I'd like to add is, when it comes to budgeting and spend,
Okay.
the amount of money that you spend is directly tied to the amount of results that you get. And once you have some measurable data on how you're converting and what's converting and what's not, if you get those feedback loops set up, you have all your multi-touch sales process set up correctly, then we can really fine tune and tell you what your cost per opportunity, your cost per closed franchise is. And then you can really scale your marketing. That's how you go from just having 10 or 20 or 30 units to having 100 or 200 units is by knowing predictably what your market cost is to get to open. And
Yeah.
that's possible. That's not a pipe dream.
Yeah, no, no, no. And that's a great last thought because it does come down to the budgeting and monitoring the budget. So if someone wants to reach out and get closer to your genius and hear more from you, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with Sean McKay?
Yeah, if they go right to my company website, which is yoursitehub.com, they'll be able to reach out to me. There's a booking link on there, and you can always follow me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn as well.
All right, so yoursitehub.com. That's how we get in touch with you. Sean, thank you very, very much for being with us today. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary. Always appreciate you and being on the show. Thank
All
you.
right.